On small networks, or large networks, or networks of any size, there is typically a need to share files amongst multiple users. There's different ways we can accomplish this on a small network. We could place the files on different computers. Basically, every user could have their files on their own computer. We could move all of the files to one central computer, or we could buy a specific device for storing and sharing files. The first option, having files on multiple computers, can be difficult to manage. If everyone has their own files on their own machine, they could be doing different things with them. We're not exactly sure what they're storing. We're not exactly sure who has access to these. And therefore, storing a lot of files on a lot of different computers is usually discouraged. One of the only advantages of having the files stored on everyone's own computer is it becomes easier to take the files with you. If you have a network comprised primarily of laptop computers, and users sometimes take the laptop out of the office, then if they have all of their files on the laptop, they would still have access to the files even when they are disconnected from the network. Looking at the second option, placing all the files on one computer, this would then make that computer what is sometimes called a file server. In a small network, a file server typically doesn't need to be a special computer. It doesn't need to be real heavy hardware, and it doesn't need to be a special operating system. We can run almost any machine as a file server. Having all of the files stored in one location will hopefully make it easier to manage. Obviously, it's easier to manage one thing rather than manage multiple things. But we have the problem now of when users are disconnected from the network, they no longer have access to their files. If you go this route, and many people do, definitely want to encourage you to keep it organized. This one big file server, if everyone is allowed to do whatever they want to it, it will quickly get very disorganized. Everyone has a different system of keeping files, and not to say that one person is right and another person is wrong with their organizational scheme, but if everyone's allowed to use a different organizational scheme, we could end up with quite the mess on this file server. Lots of files that it's unclear how they're organized. So when you create a file server, you should give your users some pretty clear rules or guidelines on how to organize folders, how to organize files, how to name things. Again, there isn't exactly a right or wrong way to do this, but it just ends up being a lot easier in the long run if everybody is pretty consistent. Several manufacturers sell devices that can be attached to your network to serve as a file server. The simplest of these are just an external drive with a network connection. Some of the more advanced ones are a housing that has multiple drives and also a small operating system. Most of these devices will operate as a DHCP client. So if you have a DHCP server on your network, all you have to do is plug in this device and it should automatically get an IP address. These devices usually come with some tools for managing your data and some tools for automatically backing up your data. Also, these devices are typically less expensive than a full computer. So if you need a machine to primarily serve as a file server, rather than buy a full computer with a full operating system, you could probably buy an external device that was purposely built for file serving and possibly get a less expensive device that still meets all of your needs.